welcome to Jets Rewind. I'm Marty Shupak. I'm joined by Ray Clifford in Marysville, Ohio, Ralph Schrager in downtown Boston, Massachusetts. How you guys doing? Welcome back. It's been a long time since we got together.
Well, we just went through the fun part of the year for the Jets. Now it gets to be the rough part when the season starts.
Yeah, it's good. Ralph, I don't know if your microphone is 100% or what. You sound a little bit.
He's all right.
You hear him all right? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, Ralph. Since you didn't have a trivia, I'll give a trivia. I went quickly, and then I want to mention something. How many New York Jets jerseys are retired, and who are they? You don't have. You could give me the number. We're going to go back to that.
Numbers, right?
You could give me numbers. Yeah, how many Jets jerseys are retired?
Jerseys. What do you mean by jerseys?
Numbers.
And the numbers, yeah. All right. Now, interestingly, Ray and Ralph, when I was looking for a trivia question, I saw something. I think we went over this, but between 1988 and 1992, Eric McMillan had 5 pick sixes. Did we know that? Ralph, you must have known that.
I did know that. I think I asked that question, who holds the record for the most pick sixes as a Jet.
Could that be an NFL record in 4 years or no? Not close.
In 4 years, possibly. I think the all-time record is about 12. Maybe Rod Woodson, something like that.
Right. But talk about a guy, Ray, that went down very fast on the food chain, you know?
Yeah.
Just like a lot of Jets. But anyway, a couple little bit of housekeeping. Tavon Coleman is on the active, non-active roster. I don't know what that means. Jeremy Ruckert is on the non-football injury list, which we knew about. I guess, Ray, what is it? A foot he's taking care of? Is that?
Yeah, he had I think it was during the week of the Senior Bowl. I don't know if it was a stress fracture. It was something with his foot. And they said though that they think he's fine for the most part. I mean, I'm okay with that. Don't rush him back. I mean, I think he's going to have a learning year anyway with these guys we signed as free agents. So I'm good with him. Take their time with him. Make sure he's healthy.
And then someone who they picked up last year, then they dropped and picked him up again. Gary Sanat, Senat, offensive tackle. He's on the undisclosed non-football injury. And again, you know, I have a soft heart. He's from Queens.
He also played on a Super Bowl winner. He was part of that trivia question.
Kansas City Chiefs.
I gave you guys.
That's
was he on the Cowboys most recently?
He was, I believe. And Ralph, he went to Wagner College.
I know.
I think it's down in Staten Island. But anyway, we got going. A week from Friday is our first exhibition game. And the first bit of big news, and Ralph, I'd like your reaction and Ray's, they moved Becton from left tackle to right tackle. What do you make of that, Ralph?
Well, I mean, Marty, you're an old offensive lineman. You know that, you know, going from left to right, it's probably easier for some people than others. Apparently, Pham played better on the left side, so I'm happy with that. I think that strengthens both sides because I thought that, you know, even though Becton had a really good rookie year, he gave up a lot of sacks and he was getting killed by Lawson on the left side. So maybe let him play the right side for a couple of years and let him get acclimated more to the league. So I think it makes him stronger on both positions.
Ray, what's your take on that?
I was good with that. I mean, Fant played well last year. I think, you know, leaving him there makes all the sense. And if we aren't sure if Becton's even going to, you know, be able to stay on the field. So I'd rather have somebody who I think will be, you know, out there on the field. And he played, like I say, played well last year. If Becton shows improvement, they'll move him back over at some point, but he's got to show he can handle being on the field for one, and that he can handle these edge rushers. And I think the better edge rushers usually come off the left side. You know, they like the blind side. So I think it might, like Ralph said, give him a chance to kind of get settled in on one side.
Yeah, and it's known throughout the league that left tackles get paid a little more than right tackles. I think that's an overrated stat. I couldn't care less. I just want this guy on the field. So if he's on
Yeah.
the field, I'm happy. So to me, it's fine. And I'll tell you this. I mean, I'm a patient guy. You know how down I was on this guy. The first time he goes into that booth, I'm telling you, that's it. I'm going to throw up my hands again. Also, I meant to say it after I went through the Jets injuries. It doesn't affect the Jets, but I think it's kind of interesting that on Tampa Bay, Ryan Jensen went out with an injury to his knees, the center, who he's going to be gone. They say at least in November, December. I think he's done for the year. They said, Todd Bowles said that Tampa Bay is going to keep or look at what they have. Between you and me and Ralph, you would know better than all of us. I don't see a guy like Tom Brady going with one of these guys. There's a center out there, J.C. Treader, who was on Cleveland. I just wanted to mention that. So I think he's going to end up on Tampa Bay. Anyway, any comments on that before we get back to the Jets?
Okay, you want me to get
We've lost Ralph.
We got Ralph.
We got him, but I don't hear anything.
Ralph, do you hear us or what? No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't hear us.
He hears us. He doesn't?
No.
I don't hear him.
them?
I hear Tammy.
Wait.
Yeah, he just unmuted. He's fine.
All right, how's that?
Right.
Much better.
Hi, Tammy. How you doing? We're gonna.
My ghosty.
Our technical
Yeah, I see
producer.
that. We're gonna.
They like your plug too, by the way. They won't want to line up and use your law firm.
All right. Anyway, yeah. Right.
That's all right.
I don't know if Ralph heard my last comment on Ryan Jensen. I jumped around as usual, but Ray, do you have any comments about the Ryan Jensen getting hurt?
Well, I think it is a big deal because I think he was a very good. I thought until Brady said he was coming back, he was ready to go to the Bengals, and that would have been great for them. But the guy from Cleveland would probably be a satisfactory replacement. Up the middle is where he needs to be protected most because he doesn't seem to get affected from the guys coming off the edges, but boy, when they're in his face, he's not the same. So that can be a big deal.
Right. Okay. Let's get back to our Jets. Kwon Alexander finally signed a linebacker. And Ralph, what's your take on this? I mean,
I guess we've all been waiting for this to happen. Yeah, I'm happy about it because I still don't have faith in Sherwood or Nasruddin. I think they're experiments, and to go into the season counting on one of those guys starting, I just think was a mistake. So I'm hoping Alexander's in shape and he's healthy, and it'll give them a decent threesome in their linebacking core.
And of course, he has a history of injuries, but it's at a point now. What NFL player doesn't
Really?
have a history of injuries? Ray, what's your take on the signing of Alexander?
I thought it was a good move. I thought it was a smart move. He actually had a pretty decent year last year playing what he did. He was in, I was looking, he was in 12 games, which was the most since his first few years in the league. The 4 years before that, he only had like 6, 8, 5, 7. He was off the field more than he was on, but he played, 12 out of 17. So
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah, at this point, it's got Becton whipped, but he had 43 tackles, 3.5 sacks, he even had a pick. So, I mean, he's probably a situational guy, but he's familiar with the system that Saleh runs, and I think that could be just a good depth guy to have.
Could be a bounce back season. I just want to throw this in there. Corey Davis lost between 10 and 15 pounds. He's shown a lot more speed. Let's hope that the loss of weight helps his hand. So let's see if he can have a bounce back year. All right, let's talk about the Jet off-season acquisitions. We haven't spoken since the draft. I'm going to start with Ray. Ray, between the free agent signings and the draft picks, you personally, who is your favorite player that they got, either free agent or draft? And who do you think is the most important player? Could be the same guy, could be two different players.
Well, most important because I'm always, ranting about the offensive line. So I thought the most important to me was Tomlinson. I thought that was a really good pickup. As much as I loved our draft, my one concern is still the two tackles. So, that could be the really scary part that could mess up our whole offense. But so I like Tomlinson a lot as far as importance. Favorite, I had to go with the hometown guy. I mean, I followed Garrett Wilson since he got to Ohio State, and he's just been better all the time. So I couldn't, but honestly, I could have picked just about any of those first four picks and they were all really good picks. I'd be happy with any of them. But my favorite, just because he's local, is the Garrett Wilson.
Ralph?
I agree with you on Tomlinson. I just think the offensive line is key to the season. It'll be nice, they're middle of the offensive line, to see them get a 3rd and 1 and actually convert it this year. Maybe that'll happen.
One time.
As far as my favorite goes, I'm like Ray. I loved all 4 of those picks. I mean, I think the guy who to me seems like he has the highest ceiling in his career potentially is Gardner. I think he's an unusual player, and I every day I thank the stars that Houston picked. Derek Stingley, who, by the way, is just finally getting on the field now.
Yeah.
You know what kind of career he's going to have.
Right.
But as far as the other ones go, they were all. I think I'm excited about all of them. I'd say Garrett Wilson, I love. I think he's made some sensational plays already, but they have a lot of depth at wide receiver, and so I think that he won't have the impact this year just because Wilson has so many targets he can go to. Breece Hall, he again, I'm sure he'll share his touches with Carter, which is great. I want to see that to keep the tread on both of them. So I'm going to go with Gardner as far as my favorite, and down the line as being the one who will have the most impact.
Right. I'm going to mirror Ray. I think Tomlinson, the guard, I think that's like the most important pickup. The offensive line, I mean, it's everything for Zach Wilson. If you follow the first few days of training without pads, he was one day he was running for his life. But of course, the defense is always ahead of the offense, and they don't put on pads till Monday. As far as my favorite, it's again Garrett Wilson. I mean, what's not to love about this guy? I don't know if you guys heard that letter his father wrote when he was drafted.
Yeah,
it's just so touching, a father-son bonding. And by the way, the father played in the NBA for a couple of seasons too. Yeah. But I just think the way this guy moves his body, the way he torques it, where you're going to see him make catches that are bad passes behind him, over his head, whatever. I think
we don't have to worry about that with our quarterback.
No, especially the short passes right at it back. But yeah, so I'm going to go exactly what Ray said, and Ray actually turned me on because of all his Ohio State Buckeye talk. I got into the Buckeyes, and I watched him, and I was just so impressed with him. The thing I want to mention too, I was on the defensive tackle they signed, Solomon Thomas, and I'm going to kind of give, what is it called, Rafa? Mea culpa? When you,
we'll call it that.
Just because, and again, I thought he was a huge bust. He was the 3rd pick in the draft. Not quite Vernon Golston bust.
No, I mean, not at all, but a mediocre player to be drafted that high. Yeah.
Right. The reason I'm giving him mea culpa, he came out and read an article, and I didn't know this. His sister had unfortunately committed suicide in 2017. He went through an incredible personal crisis for a number of years, and he sounded like, I mean, they're all positive, in preseason, but I don't say he's going to have 5 or 7 sacks, but I really hope he proves me wrong what I originally said. So I don't know how you guys feel about this Solomon Thomas.
Well, I always felt he was, a disappointment, and the fact that the Jets picked him up and San Francisco, let him go, I think speaks to that. Maybe he'll do better. I hope so, but I'm not putting too much hope into it. I think he'll be a solid piece there, but I'm not expecting anything special out of him.
Ray, any thoughts
Yeah.
on Solomon Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, depth, add a guy who knows the system. I don't think it was a bad pickup. I don't think we paid a lot. I don't remember. I don't think we taking up a lot of cap space with him. And if he can contribute, some of these other guys from last year, they were okay, but I think we needed a little more depth and guys who might do better in this system. Nathan Shepard had a decent year for him, but I'll be surprised if he's still around. So
Right.
we need depth guys.
Yeah, and looking on the list, I mean, I didn't put this on the agenda, but I'm just looking and I'm thinking if you had to pick one player that maybe was overrated, and I've gone like not quite 180 degrees, but there's been so much hype. I'm not as big as I was right now in Michael Clemens. I don't know.
Excited about him.
Oh, well, that's fine, but I just think there was so much hype, and he's gotten a lot of media attention and Twitter. Is there anyone in the list of free agent signings, draft picks you think's overrated?
Oh, you're throwing that at us now.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the free agent list.
I sent it to you. All right, we'll move on, Ralph. Okay, we'll wait. We'll do that.
You gotta let me prepare for
We'll do
that. Think about
We'll
it.
do that next week. All right, here we go, Ralph. I want to jump to you. I wanted to name some players, and we'll figure out if they're going to make the 53-man roster. And again, they haven't even put on pads, so it's tough. But go ahead.
I know, but as like Salas said, they're going to be cutting some NFL players, which is a good thing, which means the team is deeper this year. So, okay, let's start. Will he make the 53-man roster or not? Justin Hardy.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to say yes, just because it was a Douglas signing. That's the only reason. But they do have a lot of other players right now that can return punts and kickoffs. Am I right about that?
Well,
Ralph?
he's a special team, defense guy.
Yeah.
And he is a safety, but he doesn't really play it that much.
He made one of the dumbest plays last year when he just ran down. Remember that the ball hit off him? It was so stupid. So
Marty remembers every little mistake that he ever made. He'll bring that up 3 years from now. Remember when he did?
Ray still lose sleep over that. I'm going to say he makes it because he's a Douglas guy. Ray?
Yeah, I think he's one of many bubble guys who it'll come down to, does he impress during the preseason games, and in does he do well in the practices? But I think he could stick. Yeah.
I don't think he will. I think he's a gunner. That's his main job, and I think they'll find someone else. They have too many safeties, so I just think they have too many players at his position. Okay, next, Sheldon Rankin.
I think it might come down. Ray, you go first.
Give me a yes or no on these.
I'm just going to say no. I don't think he does.
I think yes. I think Nathan Shepard will be cut before him.
Oh, okay. So that. Yeah, it might come down to those two. I'm going to say no. He won't make the roster. Vinny Curry.
That's a tough one. I know he's like a emotional.
I'm not going to ask you about Zach Wilson. Okay, so we'll do tough ones here.
I say he makes it, but I think they're going to manipulate it somehow with a injured list to see if anybody gets hurt. But I say he makes it.
Yeah, I think he's going to stick.
I do too, just because he's a presence, in the locker or whatever.
Yeah.
Chuma Adoja.
Yeah, I'm saying I think anybody with some value on the line is gonna have to stick.
Yeah, I agree with you on that,
I
Marty.
think he sticks too.
Yeah. Nick Bawden.
Who is?
Honestly, I'd like to see him stick because
He's their
he's about,
fullback.
yeah, he's about the only one who
Oh,
might help us
oh.
get a yard on third down. So I'm gonna go with yeah, he's gonna stick, but
I don't think he sticks.
I don't think he will either. I think they can get Tyler Conklin to do that job.
Yeah.
How about Wesco?
It's another tough one. I think he sticks. Somehow I think he sticks.
It's like the cat came back. I don't think he will, but I think part of it will have to do with Ruckert. If Ruckert is on the roster, I think he'll go. If Ruckert's still injured, then maybe he will stick.
Right?
well, take the pup list or whatever out of it for Ruckert, and if all things being equal, I always say no, and then he ends up on the team. So
Well, they got more depth this year. How
yeah,
about Ty Johnson?
I think it's too crowded in that backfield. I think he might be one of the ones that gets.
Well, the only thing I'll say is I don't know what this, and I read at the beginning that Tavon Coleman is on some sort of active, non-active football illness list. So I don't know what that is, but I would say if it's between Coleman and him, I think he doesn't make it.
I like Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight, actually over Ty Johnson to make it. I think he'll bump in either way.
Is he the guy from
Here's
North Carolina, Ralph?
But North Carolina State,
North
yeah.
Carolina State. Okay.
Yeah, he was running behind Iquanu. Denzel Mims. Ta-da. Here's the moment we were waiting for.
I think he gets traded before the end of camp somehow.
What do you think Joe Douglas would accept for him?
I think a 6th or a 7th at this
Are
point.
you kidding?
Yeah.
You really think that he would take a 6th or a 7th for him?
What do you think he's worth?
I think he's worth more being their fifth wide receiver, considering how many injuries they got last year. I think Douglas would look at it like that.
So what do you think they'll get?
Huh?
What do you think they'll get for him?
At this point, not much more, which is why I don't think they'll trade him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ray?
What about you, Ray?
If he, I know they haven't put on pads yet or anything, but they talk about him like he's, showing that he's put in the work and he's trying. I'd like to keep him. I hope they do, but I don't know. I don't want, just same thing you're saying to Marty is I don't want to trade him because I don't think they get a fair return. But
You know what? His football talent, I think, is excellent, but his football IQ stinks. I can't put up with this stuff where he didn't get set. They called illegal procedure. He didn't know when he went out of the end zone and came in. You couldn't do that. This is little stuff. I don't know if they didn't teach him at Baylor in high school. He's got to know this stuff by instinct at this point.
Well, we hope he got his head on straight this year. That might, maybe. I think he's worth giving one more year shot to, actually.
I would love him to work out. I mean, you got a 6'3.5" receiver that goes up for the ball. He's got speed. What's not to like?
Okay. On the flip side, Jeff Smith.
I don't think he makes it.
Boy, I hope you're right. He dropped another pass.
I saw that. Yeah, he dropped another pass.
No matter what, I don't care how well he does, I will never trust that guy. He's dropped too many passes.
Let me tell you the problem with Jeff Smith is you have 2 very good days and you have 1 bad day. You can't do that at wide receiver because that 1 bad day is going to lose you games. Okay, you can't put up with that. It just shows he doesn't have
they like
NFL
him.
talent.
For some reason they like him.
they do.
Ray,
yeah, what do you say about him, Ray?
He's kind of he's kind of like Wesco, where I always say he's not going to be around, but he's always there. They do like him, and I can see him hanging on to him over Mims. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know. I hate to say it, but,
I do too.
But let me just say this about him too, and I don't know why they don't do it. He's a converted quarterback. If you
want to do a little Brad
I would
Smith
put
stuff.
in a couple of gimmick plays with him too. He's fast. I'm not a fan of his, but if you're going to keep him,
Yeah,
put in a couple of
Use
gimmick plays. Brad Smith plays. He's not as good as Brad Smith. though he has the same last name, but I would try it like that.
Okay, now here's an interesting name that's popped up in the last few days. Rashard Davis. Have you been following this guy at all?
He's been around, but the guy has speed that's off the charts.
He's quick and he's fast. You know, my feeling about it is he's been on 4 different teams. You got to figure maybe 1 or 2 could miss on him, but 4 teams, nobody's seeing it. There's something's missing in his game. It must be. He looks good in shorts, but you know, maybe when the pads come on, he doesn't want to catch it over the middle. I don't know, but something can't be right.
Ralph,
He's
let
going
me
to be 27 in a few weeks. So
let me throw this at you. Davis, Mims, and Smith, and you have to keep 2 of them. What 2 would you keep?
you know, the thing about Davis is he's got the same skill set as Braxton Berrios in size. I would keep Mims and Davis.
Okay, Ralph can't stand those alligator arms, Ray. All right, Ray, what's your feeling?
Like you say, other than maybe on special teams, I don't know what he could do, because unless Berrios goes down,
Right.
I don't see him getting a lot of time on the field. Smith, he has the game now and then when he contributes, and Mims, if he shows it, I'd rather keep him around. But if he ends up in camp showing the same signs as last year, then I think it would be Davis and Davis and Smith. But right now I would put it on Mims and Smith.
How about Eddie Panero? Is he going to be their kicker?
I have no idea, Ralph. To me, when I was saying who was like an overrated free agent, I don't know why they signed Greg Zerlin. As we enter the fourth quarter, I want to get right to Joe Klecko. So, Panero, I mean, he was doing fine. I don't think he missed a kick. So
I might have missed
I
one. I don't know.
Yeah, he's hitting his prime age as a kicker. I think he's got a stronger leg than Zerline. I think he's going to stay.
I don't know about stronger than Zerline, but I think he's more accurate than Zerline, and that might be more important than.
I think if Zerline's like about 34 now, I got to figure his leg is probably
right.
not
And,
quite what it was.
I'm assuming they're going to have this COVID list again this year, so that opens up things a little bit as far as roster flexibility. All right, let's get right to Joe Klecko. Ralph, we'll get into the next week, the Pro Bowls. Ray,
Yeah.
I'm going to turn right to you because just an update. I think it was this past week, Joe Klecko made the final 12 as far as the Veterans Committee, of which they're going to pick 3. And Ray, you kind of looked at the competition. I'm sure Ralph did too, but give us a little bit of a summary as we're going to close this out in a little bit. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I don't think it's so much the competition as much as it just seems to be I think part of Klecko's problem was he was on the same team as Gastineau, so Gastineau took all the attention a lot of times, as opposed to, because Joe wasn't the beat his chest, look at me kind of guy. But what I did do is compare the guys that were in there in the hall already, and what I found was there were about a dozen guys who his stats compare with very, very similarly and favorably, and I don't see why he's not in there with a lot of these guys. And the 2 main differences I saw was that of the 12 that I thought he compared with the best, 9 of them have Super Bowls on their resume, and he doesn't. I think that's a big part of it.
The classic was, and we went through this, Dan Hampton, where their stats are almost identical.
Stats. There are a few guys though that he compares with. Cortez Kennedy. He compares very favorably with Cortez Kennedy. The other thing I think that goes in some ways goes against him, but also goes for him, is that he played 3 different positions, but he was all pro at 2 of them,
correct,
and Pro Bowler at all of them, and the other guys pretty much all played most of their career at the same position, and I think that probably hurt his stats. The hard part was that I didn't realize it till I tried to research more, was the only stat you can really compare him with is sacks and games played, because before 87, the NFL or anybody didn't really keep tackle stats. And I think those could have made a a huge difference was tackles. And
Well, they didn't keep sack stats for the first few years of his career too.
yeah,
They
yeah, I
just-
know.
they
And they
readjusted
finally
But they
finally
can go
adjusted
back
that.
and look at them.
Yeah, and he had 20 and a half, and they didn't count those at
That's
first, but
right.
now they do.
He was the defensive player of the year in the AFC that
Yeah.
Ray, you said there were like 3 players that you saw that didn't win a Super Bowl, had similar stats. Could you name the 3 players?
Let me see if I can tell. One of them, Elvin Bethea, he played more games because his career was longer. 181 games started, 105 sacks, 2-time All-Pro. Joe had like 80, somewhere around 80 sacks in about 150 games, I think it was.
Right.
And so, you average that out and it's very comparable. Cortez Kennedy, 167 games, 119 starts, 58 sacks, 3 All-Pro. And who was the other one that he compared well with? Oh, Leroy Selman, who I thought was great, but he played mostly, it was 121 games, 117 starts, 78 and a half sacks, 3-time All-Pro.
Did he win the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay?
No, they hadn't won. They weren't in it by the time he
he was long gone.
Yeah, he was long gone by
Okay.
then.
All right,
We
Ralph.
got to the AFC Championship or NFC Championship once.
Ralph, well, let's hear. Why don't you chime in on this before we get?
Well, looking at some of the guys, Randy Gradishar, I think he belongs. You weren't in Ohio when he was playing.
No, he was before.
He was great college player, and he had a lot of All-Pro and Pro Bowls. Chuck Howley, the only guy to ever win the MVP on a losing team. He was a very good player on a dominant team. I don't think he's going to make it this year. I think he will make it in the next couple of years, but I don't know about this year. I think personally he's a better player than Dan Hampton. Dan Hampton was surrounded by all these Hall of Famers, and he just played one position. Whereas to me, I think playing all 3 positions and doing really well at all 3 is a bonus, a plus for him.
It should be.
He also fought a lot.
Ralph, let me just interrupt you for a second. I think also Ray brought out a good point that if he focused on one position, he might have excelled even more. It's like,
Right.
I don't know how to
His numbers.
compare. It's like a baseball pitcher. If you bring him as a starter, then put him in the bullpen and as a starter, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's a
Work
good
for
point,
Dennis
but
Anderson.
I think we're all on the same page though, that the 3 positions is more of a plus
Yeah.
than focusing on one. I'm
He's
sorry.
he's the only defensive player in history to make the Pro Bowl in 3 different positions. Cortez Kennedy was basically a D tackle, so that's probably why he didn't. But he was a dominant player.
He was.
He was a super high draft pick who always had a great reputation. A lot of that shit counts. Sorry, my language. It's.
First time ever.
I mean, like I've said to you guys before, if he and Randy White flipped teams and he was on Dallas, he'd be in the Hall of Fame now because he was at least as good a player as Randy White.
Okay. So go ahead, Ray. We got to close this out.
No, I just, and those weren't the only guys. He had some comparable stats with guys, but I think it came down to Super Bowls, and some of their stats were better because he wasn't at one position, and he wasn't the kind of guy who took a lot of attention. I mean that,
right.
Gastineau, I think, took a lot of the attention away from him.
Well, if you want to compare stats, compare Wesley Walker's stats to Cliff Branch.
Yes.
Identical.
Not even.
Yes.
But Cliff Branch, how many Super Bowl rings?
Exactly.
And what I would like, if I had a wish, I would wish Joe Klecko would make the Hall of Fame in football, and Albert Bell would make the Hall of Fame in baseball. So that brings us back to the trivia question. How many New York Jets jerseys are retired? We're going to start with Ralph. You give me 2, Ralph, and then Ray's going to give me 2. Then you're going to shoot.
12 and 75.
Who's 75?
Is that Winston Hill?
No, it's not retired.
He's in the Ring of Honor, but he probably didn't.
Unless they just did it. This could be an old
Is that a
question.
Doga? Who's 75? I think there is a 75 right now.
Okay.
Doga, or maybe it's Vera Tucker. One of them might be.
Ray?
75.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you're right. It's Vera Tucker.
Ray, give me 2.
73. I'm not gonna do the obvious ones. There's 12. I'm not gonna do that one. And I'm saying 73 and 81.
No, it's, all right. First of all, number 12, Joe Namath.
Yeah,
Number 13, Don
Yeah.
Maynard.
those were the two I was like, I wasn't gonna do that.
Number 28, Curtis Martin.
Oh, I didn't realize they were.
Player we were just speaking about, number 73, Joe Klecko. And they had to do it. Number 90, Dennis Bird, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
They did it. So that's it. So look, we're going to close this out, and we'll be back next week for Ray Clifford, Ralph Schrager, and Marty Shupak. Until next time.